Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Marketing Corner.
Whoop, whoop,
Yay, yay. And we're recording from the studio.
This is a beautiful studio.
Yeah,
I meant to say
this is a
before.
nice setup.
It's really,
Hopefully you will appreciate the setup we have
There's a
here
camera
now.
there. There's a camera there. There's a
3
camera
cameras, 2 microphones,
there. Lights.
pro mics, lights, like we got all of it. Anyways, today we're gonna do episode 95.
95.
And if you haven't listened to it by now, episode 94 were predictions for next year.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is gonna be a little bit more about our learnings from 2024. What do we take with us?
Yep.
So that's where we start, and I think like actually where we start is a little bit maybe around what we had maybe going into 2024.
Yeah.
What we were. So if you've been listening for that long, we actually been around that long.
We've been around for a while.
So we've been around for a while, and we predicted a few things last year, and some of it is true, and some of it is not so true.
Yeah.
So let's start with some of it, things that might not be as true as we thought it would be.
So in episode 66, which we did beginning of 2024, we predicted PLG would be huge.
Yes, product-led growth for anyone who doesn't know.
Product-led growth. I will say, I think the concept of it is still very popular, but I have not seen it executed wonderfully.
Nope.
Anywhere really.
Nope.
Except for like the big gut, the Slacks and the Dropbox and all the case studies that everyone uses to justify doing PLG. I haven't really seen it play out in real life.
I totally agree. I think it's still the dream.
Mm-hmm.
It's still the dream, and when it works, it's the most beautiful thing in the world.
Yes.
But I actually talked to Leah about this. Leah Tarrant, like shout out to Leah.
Shout out Leah.
But also shout out to Wes Bush about this as well. Same to talk about the same stuff. But she actually had I heard one of her talks recently, and she also said it that what she has found, and what don't mean to put words in her mouth here, but is that it doesn't actually work without sales.
Yes.
Like you can't like the 1 in a million billion examples when it works without sales are that. But most of the time it's actually only works when there's a strong collaboration with your sales team. So these completely 100% unicorn, 1% PLG motions, most of the time what she sees is 50-50. So half PLG, half sales motion. And that works really well.
Right.
And that's also what I've come to terms. And it was so funny when I was watching her talk, I was sitting with the feeling.
This was at the Dream Data event, right?
Yeah. 2 months, 3 months
Hey,
ago.
Laura.
Or something. Yeah, shout out. But I remember thinking, when she was showing, I was like, yeah, that's actually exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I don't see the 100% PLG motions almost anywhere.
And I will say from experience of trying to launch a PLG, we really struggled with getting sales okay with it. It wasn't so much that we didn't want to work with sales, but sales felt it was threatening them. And it was more like trying to make people understand that. I think there's 2 levels that stopped us, because we did end up stopping the PLG motion. Because it was just proving to take too many resources. But one, sales saw it as something to replace sales. It was never intended to replace sales. It was intended to kind of take over the small deals so that sales can move more mid to up market. And 2, making sure that upper management, C-level, had reasonable expectations of what to expect, because I think they wanted it to be a revenue generator. And it was never intended to generate revenue. It was intended to generate efficiencies. How do we stop people from spending too much time on small deals? Let's automate those and move everyone else to focus elsewhere.
Gotcha.
And without setting those understandings early on, there was a very big misalignment in what we saw as successful versus what the people who were writing the check saw as successful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it didn't end up making it, unfortunately.
And absolutely. And I think one thing Leah brought up as well is just it's not because you can't do it without sales. It's definitely possible. What we've just found and what she's seeing and what I'm also seeing is it just works better with sales.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like we can try to do it without, but it's actually just better. Like, and I think especially once you move up market, like once you, so it works for Canva, right? But once Canva has to sell to Mask, well, then it's probably good to have a person to talk to for Mask. Right?
And that's the thing, and I said in one of my talks, if I'm spending $20 a month, I don't want to talk to a salesperson. But if I'm spending 5,000, 10,000, then I definitely want to speak to someone. So it's never intended to replace sales. It's intended to create efficiencies.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of the efficiencies don't always equal dollar signs. And I think that's sometimes where the misunderstanding and misalignment.
Yeah, and I think that's just like a healthy But that's one of the good learnings. I think that's
definitely.
also something like I love learning this kind of stuff because it's like that just makes us better. Like
that's the growth mindset, everyone.
Yeah,
it's not a failure. It's
not
a learning.
It's just learning.
So now we're going to hit in 2025 with this learning, and maybe we'll see some PLGs taking off. Very exciting. What are some other things that maybe we got wrong?
I don't think we got this one 100% wrong, but it was like maybe less bad as I hoped was the wrong word. But the whole budgets, like there's been an extreme focus on efficiency in the last year, and we've seen it. But and I think for us at least, and this is so anecdotal, so take it for what it is, because even though we have like how many 50, 60 clients we work with over our lifetime now or something like that, but in the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot. Still more than typical Joe probably. But my point is, especially in the first 6 months of this year, Jesus, that was a lot of budgets. It's first quarter, holy moly, that was brutal. There was a lot of budget cuts, and let's see if Q1 of next year, I don't know yet, it's going to be as brutal. But that was brutal. But I also started to notice it flipped later in the year, and people didn't talk as much about holding back. It was more about giving it all. We saw a lot of funding rounds come in and stuff. Don't get me wrong. As far as I understand, funding rounds are at an all-time low.
Yes.
So it's not. This is feels maybe I'm just talking to right people. but I haven't experienced it as bad as I was thinking it would be. At least. With that said, there's still been extreme focus on efficiency. When we talk to, and I think the reason, and this is for me to say, but the reason we're being brought into cases is because the lack of efficiency. And that's actually been like a great growth driver for us. It's just like all these companies, no hard feelings, they have no clue what they're doing. So we're like, come in and fix our shit. And but I also feel like that would have happened anyways, potentially. I don't think that has necessarily changed because of the whole climate. That's just my take. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one. We talked that was a little debate we had maybe in the previous episode of like in-house versus bringing in agencies and things like that. And I also have seen a lot more reliance on external agencies. And as an in-house, I'm like, ugh! But I can understand why you would want to kind of outsource certain things, right? And we talked a little bit about it's easier to get rid of them. If it's not working out with an agency, it's really much easier to cancel than if you have to let go of a couple of people.
100%.
A lot cheaper here in Scandinavia, especially. So there is an efficiency there. And also, if you want sort of quick execution rather than and AI I think has a lot to do with this, and we can talk a little bit about AI because that's a big thing of 2024. But rather than doing deep dives and really in-depth white papers, if it's more like surface level, get it done and get it into the world, then outsourcing that and making sure that happens is a lot more efficient than having an in-house team doing that. So definitely have seen that kind of shift. Is this the part where we talk about AI?
I think so. I think so. What do you feel like we got right about AI, and maybe what did we get wrong?
I don't think we were necessarily wrong about it. I think I did not expect I'm trying to think of the right way to say it. Like I knew AI was going to be huge. Everyone's using it. It's become so accessible, largely thanks to ChatGPT. But other models now building off of that. But I think the thing that I was surprised at is how many niche tools there are. So it's not just like a ChatGPT that can do a lot of everything, but now you have something specifically for ad messaging, something specifically for ad recommendations. And so I think it's interesting to see the proliferation of these AI tools that are in very niche kind of segments. And we were talking in the previous episode of like what is the MarTech stack of the future with AI now. So I think that we didn't really talk too much about that, but that's something for 2024 that I was really surprised to see just sprouting up everywhere, these new tools that it's really hard to keep up.
I think one of the, not to give myself a pat on the back here, but one of the things I at least saw coming was that AI needed to be about use cases. And in the beginning, like in the early parts of 2023, so which is almost 2 years ago now, then it was all about just like you just sprinkled AI into everything. And then I felt like last year in 2024 here, a lot of people have realized that it's not just about that anymore. It's about like, and you say you're niching down, right? Like it's a use case. So here you use AI. Like it's actually funny. Do I use ChatGPT a lot? Yeah, but not that much. Like actually, the AI thing I use the most is my note taker.
Right. Yeah.
That's actually the thing I use the most. That's a very specific use case, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing I use AI the most for. So I think the use cases have, fortunately, I think carried on, and I at least hope that would be the case, and I think that has been the case, which is great.
I think that, and I think future episode alert, like let's do the MarTech stack of the future, because that comes up a lot. And a lot of the networking and marketing communities I'm in, everyone's like, how are you using AI? What tools are you using? You know, and every day there's a new thing that could, we used AI to do that. And I want to talk actually a little bit about Humany, which is, I'm on their advisory board, but this is actually a really cool thing for AI is they do working styles. So now if you and I are both on that app and I say, hey, Casper's late to meetings a lot. He's a bit of a dickhead. How do I bring this up with him without pissing off? Because New Yorker Jen wants to be like, Casper, get your shit together. But that might not work. But what they do now is they use AI to say, you should bring it up like this and do it in the morning because he's actually more receptive to this kind of feedback in the morning. And this is how you should bring it up. And it breaks down using AI the best way for me to communicate with you based on my style and your style. That's something I did not see coming so soon. So it's not just marketing. It's just like everything around us is kind of trying to be optimized, which is cool, but also a little bit like...
no, I totally get it. I totally get it.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point. I think... so we talked about AI, we talked about these different things. Actually, like, just a funny note on this whole MarTech stack that I thought about, like, who do you think is growing the most, Salesforce or HubSpot? In percentage, right?
Ooh, I would say HubSpot.
I would have said that too, until a few days ago.
Okay.
Salesforce.
Is it still?
Yeah, it's not even close.
It's such a behemoth. I think that's where I don't like Salesforce because you need like a degree to figure it out. Whereas HubSpot,
don't shoot me, Salesforce. I love you.
We love you. I'd love to come to Dreamforce one day.
I love the tool made a bit more than HubSpot. And I think like we're part of an ecosystem that's so orange and that feeling. Like we all love HubSpot, but technically when it comes to actual growth rates, Salesforce kills it compared to HubSpot. So I think sometimes it's like this is also like what does the data tell us and what does our gut feeling tell us? Because if you asked me just before, like, hey, what does the MarTech stack look in the future? I'm like, oh, HubSpot, everyone's on HubSpot, fuck Salesforce. But now I'm like, I'm not too sure about that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Let's see what happens.
But I can imagine also like big enterprises are probably using Salesforce.
Absolutely.
Whereas like us little guys who can't afford Salesforce are probably...
And HubSpot is moving up market to grab those, but
don't leave us behind, HubSpot.
But it doesn't appear that they're like winning.
Yeah.
As it seems out to be, because like whenever you talk to someone, like it feels like HubSpot is winning, and when we look at our clients, like HubSpot feels like
our
winning.
universe right now.
But maybe it's because they're not landing the big deals or something, right?
But I think that's something that's very interesting because I think I'm starting to see the startup bubble and the scale-up bubble, which we operate very heavily in. Most of your clients, right, is in that space. Yeah. But I think if we were to look towards the Maersks and the Novo Nordisks, maybe they've never even heard of HubSpot because they're just like in Salesforce,
Absolutely. That is so much a thing. Like, let's take a funny example from my days at Templify. How big a percentage of Fortune 500 do you think is on Microsoft 365?
I would say it's higher than we think, just based on this conversation. 60%.
Higher.
70%.
Higher.
87%.
Higher.
Stop it.
No, I think it's above 95.
95%.
Yeah, that was a few years ago, so it might have changed.
Yeah.
But
this was the logic we always used when I was like, we have to be on Bing, and people were like, why should we be on Bing? But those systems default to Bing.
Fortune 500 companies, they're not using Google.
They're
Suite.
not on Google. No,
I work. SparkForce is a Google Suite. We're a Google, and I love it. But that is not the reality of big, large enterprises.
Yeah, and we get so caught up in our little worlds that there is a whole nother universe out there that we don't often think about.
We communicate on Slack, right? We're in Slack. Slack is not even remotely close to the biggest one, right?
Yeah.
Like Microsoft Teams is way
Teams.
bigger.
Yeah.
Way huger.
Absolutely. I mean, I see all these memes and stuff about Teams and I'm like, I get maybe one Teams invite a quarter.
Exactly.
And then I'm on Google,
And it always fucks up and stuff.
And this leads a little bit, I don't know if we talked about this, but this is something I've noticed leading into this upmarket enterprise is there still seems to be an identity crisis among scale-ups.
Yes.
They really think they're enterprise. And everyone wants to be the Salesforce. Everyone wants to be the Coca-Cola. Everyone thinks our product is the one that's going to serve that.
That sells to enterprise. Okay, yeah.
To sell to enterprise. But actually, when you look at a lot of the numbers, bread and butter, small to medium SMBs.
Most make the money from mid-market, right?
And that's... I don't know, and this is something I've seen in companies I worked for, with people I work with, and through mentoring and freelancing, is like everyone wants to be enterprise, but not. Like, I would love to look like Angelina Jolie, early 2000s Mr. and Mrs. Smith era. That doesn't mean I will, you know. And that's kind of how I feel about it. I'm like, yeah, sure, you could want to be enterprise someday. That's great, but. You're not, unless you do some significant changes to your business model, to your product, to your processes,
and your sales
everything.
process is so different.
Yeah.
Like it's a completely different team.
But
it's a different
like
setup, right?
Reluctancy to say, you know what? This is where we're making our money. Let's double down on the thing that's actually working. It's always like striving for that. And I guess maybe that's part of like founders and CEOs. You know, you get to be successful because you strive for the unimaginable and stuff like that. But there has to be something said for being like, you know what? This is where we're making our money. We're going to stick here. Like HubSpot, stick with us. We love you. We tell everyone to work with HubSpot. Everyone I know works for HubSpot. Don't go for enterprise. Don't leave us behind.
No.
Because who's going to... I want my big orange hug.
I think I can actually... let me chip in with an example here. So I can't mention the name yet. I probably could, but let's not try. So we landed a very large Danish enterprise.
Congratulations.
Client. And that's not in our ICP. It's not a normal ICP, right? Because we go up to around 800 employees. This one is 10,000 plus or something.
Okay.
It's huge.
Huge.
And it's a little bit of a special department of them, but technically speaking, it's still the same. And I think it's important to note that their sales process was so different. Well, they're going to do a lot of the same stuff, but I think we didn't go chasing it. They came to us, and then we like followed up. It's not like I dropped the ball, but then they came to us, and then we closed it through that. And I think I think my point is just like that doesn't change. I'm not going to go start chasing those.
Yeah,
I'm not going to start.
If they fall in your lap,
they fell in my lap, and I'm saying yes. But it's not changing our business model fundamentally because we landed that one. At least now. That's not how I see it.
And I think that's smart because I've seen so many times in so many companies like, oh, we close a huge deal. That means we can. So that means we should. And now everyone, product, marketing, sales, CS, now we're all focusing on this and we're leaving all of this behind. And then they wonder why revenue drops. One of the examples I talked about at Tech Barbecue was... JCPenney, was it? I can't remember, but it was an American department store, right? Where they wanted, it was known for being budget. It was known for being very economically friendly for families and stuff like that. And the new CEO came in, he's like, no, we're going to be upmarket. We're going to be luxury. And then he lost like $10 million because he went for the luxury. People were not buying because your brand is not associated with luxury. And you alienated your bread and butter. And, you know, so obviously that's on a much larger scale, but I just want companies to maybe look in the mirror and know who you are and who you serve.
Exactly.
And double down on that rather than constantly trying to be the next Salesforce.
Absolutely. I think it's just, it shouldn't change your fundamentals, at least not for the very first.
Unless you have a lot of proof. You know, a lot of, because it does change.
Most of the time you don't.
So many times the GTM is like, we're going to be small, we're going to be mid-market, and we're going to be enterprise. And it's three different approaches happening simultaneously. And that leads us, I guess, a little bit to like our last conversation about a marketing team. You want a small marketing team, but you want them to do a PLG and a free trial and small deals and mid-market and enterprise ABM all at the same time. That's going to need people. You know, so pick your lane and stick to it.
100%. I think one learning I've learned in 2024, maybe I'll share this. It's just this is not like, it's funny, like it's not a learning because I kind of knew it before, but it's just a reaffirmation. Can we say that? How much your foundation matters. And when I say foundation, I just mean like some stuff like ICP and positioning specifically. Those two things.
I was amazed at how many people don't know their ICP.
I am baffled. I am baffled at how many times we go through ICP every single time. And 9 out of 10 times, it is very, very much necessary that we do so.
But that also leads from the previous point of like, know who your ideal customer is.
It's insane.
Is it an enterprise? Or,
It is really bad. So that's one thing. And then the second part is like, once you've figured out that part, I feel like there's so many who don't know their positioning or don't have a unique positioning.
No, because you're
everything
everything
to
actually
everyone,
more
that part. Where it's like, okay, we want to sell to these guys. Okay, cool.
And these guys.
What do you tell to them then? Like what makes them buy you? Like, but we have this one. We're really good at this part. Like, okay, where can I see that?
But it's also something that we've talked about before, being everything to everyone, all the time, everywhere.
You end up being nothing to no one.
You're nothing to no one. And that's, again, pick your lane.
Pick your lane.
You know, and double down on it.
Yeah.
And that's something that I just think is so, maybe that's part of that identity crisis of this is where we win. This is who we go after. This is why they like us. This is our USP that appeals to them.
Yeah.
And this is how we're going to get them.
And I think it ties into a bigger discussion. So I'm having a cool. I'm doing a webinar here in Jan when this comes out with the guy Ulrich, who's Ulrich, the pricing expert.
Yes,
super smart,
nice,
really cool. I'm doing a webinar with him about pricing.
Cool.
And one of the things we're going to talk about.
We should get him on the pod.
We should. I'm working on that.
Okay.
Shout out Ulrich.
Hey Ulrich.
But
I read your book.
One of the things I'm thinking about and what we're going to talk about is the lack of marketing influence on the classic 4 Ps, right? You know, price, promotion, placement, and product, right? Now these days, what is marketing? Is just promotion.
Yeah.
Like you don't have
an afterthought.
When is the last time, honestly, God to heart, you had an influence on pricing in a company? Yeah, exactly. Me neither.
Yeah.
Right?
I put it on the page. That was my influence of like, can I put it on the page or not? That
exactly, right?
Yeah.
So there's just I think that goes back to the ICP and the positioning. I feel like the ICP is not being made by marketing people. Like marketing people, like they're not involved for some reason, which is super weird.
It's very, And you know, this is anecdotal as well, but what you've said really resonated because I have been approached about a board of directors position, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
It's still, I'm still being considered. It's not sorted. But the fact that they asked a marketer to be on the BOD was actually quite like
refreshing.
And I said to them, like, we're usually an afterthought. And they're like, we know. Like, that's why we want a marketing person here to help us with our ICP, to help us with our positioning, to help us with our GTM strategy. Because usually it's like, this is what we've decided. Okay, now marketing, can you go make that happen? And marketing's like, okay, go. Set us up for failure a little more.
Yeah, exactly. And you're setting marketing up for failure. If you only have promotion, if that's your only thing you can pluck, like if it's a hard battle, right?
And you wonder why it's expensive and you're not getting the results that you thought you would get when you just sat in a room talking with other salespeople.
I actually have one thing in the same note. So of the 4 Ps, like we have product, right? And one of the things we've talked a lot about last year is sales and marketing alignment, right?
Yes.
Talked a lot about that. Don't get me wrong. I think that's going to continue. It's an important topic. Let's keep getting closer to sales. But one thing we haven't talked too much about, in my opinion, is product and marketing alignment.
Yes.
Like, marketing should be part of setting the roadmap. Like, part of, like, I don't need to be the one who writes the code, but marketing should be at the table.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's also, speaking of future, but like a little bit more prediction time. But one of the things I've learned, at least in 2024, is that the cases that I've seen where product and marketing and sales are tightly knit together,
those are the ones
those are the killer ones.
100%. And that's one of the things we do on Amundo is we have these cross-functional task forces. So everything we do, we're like, product is in here because like when we did our free trial, it was like, I wanted a free trial. Marketing wanted a free trial. But we need product to build it.
Exactly.
We need sales to sell it. We need CS to support it. Absolutely. And I think the first time I really saw, you know, we do the conference thing, right? A lot. And it's always sales, marketing. And it was Sassiest in Malmö where you and I were both there.
Yeah, I remember
the first time there was like a product branch at like a marketing focused event. And that was really refreshing to see. There was a CS kind of track, there was a product track, and it was really nice to get us all together because we're selling the damn thing. You know, we should be part of
exactly. And I think the unity of like product, sales, and marketing, there needs to be something happening there.
Yeah.
Like I don't see that too much, unfortunately.
Yeah. So. I think that's definitely something for 2025. Definitely I'm taking into 2025 is get product in the room.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you have a product marketer, you know, the role of product marketing, I think, has evolved quite nicely. It's really exciting to see for that exact reason. Like, have one foot in marketing, have one foot in product, make sure that you guys are talking.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
We're about to run out of time, Jen.
Yes.
Do you have any more learnings you want to share from 2024?
I think one more thing that is still gets me is the attribution thing. We still haven't figured that out.
No.
And that's, I hope I'm not going to be saying this to my deathbed of like, can we just make something make sense? We haven't moved from a first touch.
But isn't it just like a mindset thing at this point? Right? Like
not if commission's involved.
No,
you know what
fine.
I mean? And so I think it's like, you can only change so much without changing the foundations of what everything's built on. And I think that's for 2025. That's I'm going to advocate for is there needs to be serious changes to how we measure success and measure performance, or we're going to continue to pit marketing and sales against each other.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think what I've found is that actually it's kind of weird because like there's two camps for me when it comes to that stuff. There's the people who obsess about it, and then there's the people who realized that obsessing about it doesn't lead to anything.
Exactly.
And I'm way more about the last one these days myself. Like because I used to be super obsessed about it. Now so that's maybe a good learning, but I'm not that much anymore because there's just areas of it that I can't control and I will never be able to control. So I like when we just had a client review or like for the year, their pipeline, they didn't have they barely hit their meetings target, so didn't have more meetings, but the quality of those meetings had more than like almost tripled, I think. But and their pipeline had like quadrupled.
And that's what they should be focusing on.
And that's the point, right?
And, right?
And it's so and then like okay, we are part of that. Like we're a big part of that. We don't do search for these folks. We do like mostly the demand gen, the paid social, all that stuff. Okay, we're a huge motherfucking part of that. We're not the whole pie of that.
No,
we're
not
a
at all.
big part of that. And we all know that. It's all set in the room. There's no requirements from us because we know, like, they're like, okay, you guys got us up here. You were part of getting, maybe you're not own the whole thing, but you own a big part of it.
And when you have that mentality, then you don't have to obsess. Yeah. But then on the other side of the coin where I have worked is like, if you don't hit this target, you're not getting your full salary. And you're probably going to get fired. And that's where you obsess about it, right? And that's, I think that's a waste of energy. Yeah. It kills collaboration. Yeah. It kills working together. Let's focus on revenue-based targets. Let's stop measuring people based on how many meetings they book because that doesn't mean they're good.
Nope.
That's my hill to die on, I think, for 2025 is like, let's bring it back to common sense and work together.
100%.
On that note,
welcome to 2025. Let's kill it and let's make sure we get a lot of learnings.
Yes. Looking forward to the 2026 episode where we come back and see how this year went.
Enjoy 2025.
Go kill it, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.